They used to call it a forgotten war, though for him it never truly ended. Every morning, just after sunrise, an old man walked to the same park bench at the edge of town. His coat was worn thin at the elbows, his boots scuffed beyond repair. Most people passed him without a second glance. To them, he was just another elderly figure with nowhere to be, a relic of time fading into the background of a modern world that no longer paused. His name was Thomas Halle, though hardly anyone remembered it. The war he fought in had no blockbuster movies, no school chapters dedicated to its battles, no holidays where flags were waved in its honor. It lived in footnotes, in dusty archives, in documents stamped classified and never reopened. And so did the men who fought it. Thomas had been 19 when he enlisted. He still remembered the smell of oil and metal on the transport ship, the nervous jokes exchanged among boys pretending to be men. They were sent to a land few could pronounce and even fewer cared about. There were no cheering crowds when they arrived. Just heat, mud, and a silence that felt heavier than gunfire. Combat was chaos. Days blurred into nights, and nights were broken by explosions that rattled the soul. Thomas learned how fear tasted metallic and sharp and how grief sounded like the quiet gasp of a friend who wouldn't be getting back up. He learned to move forward even when every instinct screamed to stop. Once, during a brutal engagement, his unit was pinned down for hours. Communications were dead. Ammunition was running low. Retreat meant certain death. Thomas volunteered to crawl through open ground to reach a disabled radio relay. He still remembered the bullets tearing through the dirt inches from his face, his heart pounding so hard he thought it would give him away. He made it. The call for support went through. Reinforcements arrived just in time. Dozens of lives were saved that day. But wars don't always reward bravery with recognition. By the time Thomas returned home, the conflict had already been buried under newer crises and louder headlines. The government quietly reassigned medals, downgraded reports, and sealed records. Political convenience had rewritten reality. Thomas went home with scars no one could see and memories no one asked about. He married, worked in a factory, and raised 2 children. He never spoke much about the war. When his daughter once asked why he woke up screaming some nights, he only smiled and said he'd had a bad dream. His wife passed away. His children moved away, busy building lives in cities that didn't remember old soldiers from forgotten wars. Time did what time always does, it erased. At least it tried to. One autumn afternoon, a local high school teacher was researching a small, nearly abandoned monument at the edge of town. The stone was cracked, its inscription faded. It listed names from a conflict most textbooks skipped entirely. One name caught her attention: T. Halle. Digging deeper, she found fragmented military logs, redacted files, and after weeks of persistence, a declassified report describing the radio relay incident. The bravery was undeniable. The man who saved those soldiers was still alive. She found Thomas on his usual park bench. At first he was suspicious. Years of silence had taught him not to expect anything. But when she showed him the documents, his hands trembled. Not from pride but from disbelief. Someone had finally remembered. The story spread slowly at first, then all at once. A small ceremony was organized. Nothing grand, just townspeople, a few officials, and a flag that had seen better days. Thomas stood awkwardly as his name was read aloud, his service spoken clearly for the first time in decades. When the medal was placed in his hands, his eyes filled with tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed since he was 19. "I didn't fight to be remembered," he said quietly. "But it's good to know we weren't forgotten." Photos of the event circulated online. Comments poured in. Veterans shared their own stories of silence and neglect. Families searched old records. The forgotten war wasn't forgotten anymore. Thomas returned to his park bench the next morning, medal tucked safely in his coat pocket. People nodded at him now. Some stopped to say thank you. Others simply smiled. History had nearly erased his name, but not today, and not anymore. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please consider sharing it so that more unsung heroes are remembered. Subscribe for more stories that deserve to be told.